If someone could erase your past and block your future, would you still exist? And chances are you've already lived versions of this. Moments when a single interaction changed not just how you felt, but who you were becoming. Most of us think identity is something we own, a core, a fixed center, hidden somewhere inside our heads. Except if that were true, a single comment wouldn't follow you for years. A look of disapproval wouldn't shake your confidence, and a moment of encouragement wouldn't redirect the course of your life. But they do. Identity isn't something you have, it's something you do. A weave across time, shaped not only by your choices, but by the relationships and systems you live inside. And you never weave it alone. We're taught to think identity is private, a personality, a set of traits, a story we tell ourselves. But that picture captures only part of the truth. Think of the person you were 5 years ago. Now think of the person you might become in 10. What actually connects those two lives? Memory gets you part of the way there. But continuity and the possibility of a future you can move toward depends on more than what you remember. It depends on what can be recognized, what can be imagined, what can be sustained. In this video, I want to explore a simple but radical idea. You don't become yourself alone. Identity is a process of integration across time, and the way we structure our relationships determines whether that integration deepens or begins to fracture. Today, we're looking at why identity feels solid one moment and fragile the next, and why the way we coordinate each other's time may be the most important structural choice we make. In PHET, the Phenomenology of the Human Experience of Time, we don't see a person as a point in time. We see a trajectory, a braid. Identity is a process of temporal integration, the weaving together of past, present, and future. You're not a point in time. You are a trajectory. Think of identity as a braid. One strand carries your past forward as memory. One strand is the present, the moment where you interpret and evaluate your life. And one strand projects your future, the possibilities you're reaching toward. When those strands hold together, your life feels coherent. Even when something changes, a loss, a move, a new beginning, the braid doesn't snap. The event becomes part of the pattern. Think about a breakup or moving to a new city. Suddenly your past feels heavier or lighter, your future shifts shape, and the present becomes a place where you try to hold it all together. Identity doesn't live in a single moment. It's the way life stays connected across moments. And here's the tension. Identity feels deeply personal, yet it unfolds across time in ways we don't fully control. So how do we make sense of that? If identity is a braid of past, present, and future, then we have to ask a simple but essential question. Who helps us hold the strands together? Because your strands are never purely your own. The stories you inherit, the language you speak, the expectations placed upon you, the possibilities you're encouraged or discouraged from imagining, all of these shape the weave of your life. We do not become ourselves in isolation. Our braids cross, they press against each other, they tighten or loosen depending on how they are held. A conversation, a correction, an encouragement, a dismissal. These are never trivial moments. They are points where braids come into contact and reshape one another. Over time, these crossings form patterns, and those patterns become the social fabric we inhabit. When those patterns stabilize across time, when shared memories, norms, and future orientations hold, they become what we call collective identity. Just as individuals weave lives across time, communities weave shared trajectories. Memory isn't just what you remember, it's what your community makes rememberable. The future isn't just what you imagine, it's what others allow you to imagine. Your values, even the ones that feel most personal, were formed in shared worlds. No one develops a moral compass alone. Even the voice you call your own was learned in conversation. So if identity is woven between us, then how we treat one another isn't just kindness or cruelty. It shapes the world we share. If identity is relational, then difference is not optional. No two lives unfold in the same way. No two braids carry identical memories or project identical futures. Relational life produces variation. And variation is not a threat to identity. It is the condition under which integration deepens. In ecology, resilience does not come from uniformity. It comes from biodiversity, from the ability of a system to absorb change without collapsing. The same principle holds for human life. When you only encounter people who share your assumptions, your interpretive bandwidth stays narrow. When you encounter different histories, ways of thinking, or forms of experience, you gain more ways of making sense of the world and more ways of making sense of yourself. More perspectives widen interpretation. More trajectories widen possibility. More lived experience widens resilience. To become more fully human is not to eliminate difference. It is to expand the range of difference we can integrate without fracture. Integration grows by metabolizing what is not already the same. A life that encounters no difference remains narrow. A society that refuses difference becomes brittle. Diversity is not merely representation. It is the expansion of integrative capacity. And because we are temporal integrators, expanding that capacity is not just socially useful. It aligns with the trajectory of our becoming. Inclusion, then, is not sentimental. It is structural. It is how relational beings deepen what they can hold together, and therefore how they become more resilient across time. But expanding what we can hold together requires coordination. If relational life produces difference, and difference expands integration, then relational systems must also do something else. They must organize. Relational systems are not flat. We do not carry the same experience, the same knowledge, the same resources, the same decision-making capacity. In complex systems, that unevenness is not an error. It is how coordination becomes possible. In ecosystems, species play different roles. In biological systems, cells exert different influence. In neural networks, some nodes stabilize, some amplify, some regulate. Complex systems survive through structured asymmetry. The differential capacity to shape direction, to regulate feedback across time, is power. Power is not simply domination. It is the capacity to shape trajectories within a relational system. A teacher who invites questions expands the future students can imagine. A teacher who mocks a wrong answer narrows the trajectory a student feels permitted to pursue. Same role, same classroom, different feedback structure. That is power. Without organizing influence, systems fragment. Without feedback regulation, integration destabilizes. Consider a parent and a child. The asymmetry is obvious. The parent holds more authority, more knowledge, more responsibility. But that unevenness is not inherently unjust. It is what makes guidance and development possible. Power stabilizes relational systems long enough for growth to occur. But coordination can take different forms. Feedback can remain adaptive, expanding what the system can integrate, or it can become rigid, narrowing what is permitted, recognized, or imagined. Power organizes not only relationships, but possibilities. It determines which memories are amplified, which futures are encouraged, which identities are stabilized, and which are quietly suppressed. So power is not an anomaly in relational life. It is one of its structural conditions. The question is not whether power exists. The question is whether influence increases adaptability or produces brittleness. If power is the capacity to shape trajectories, then ethics concerns how that capacity is exercised. Ethics is not a rulebook floating above life. It follows from what we are. We are temporal integrators. We survive individually and collectively by holding past, present, and future together in ways that can adapt to change. So the ethical question becomes precise. Does the way influence is structured expand what the system can integrate or restrict it? Diversity makes this visible. Difference increases the range of what can be understood, remembered, and imagined. But difference also creates tension. Integration grows by metabolizing what is not already the same. And power determines whether that metabolizing happens or whether difference is suppressed. To exclude is not simply to reject. It is to reduce the system's adaptive capacity. To narrow horizons is not only to harm individuals, it is to weaken collective resilience. This is why diversity is not merely representation. It is a structural condition of resilience. More perspectives widen interpretation. More trajectories widen possibility. A system that can integrate more variation is less likely to fracture when disruption arrives. Ethics, then, is not about eliminating power. It is about structuring influence in ways that expand integrative capacity. When that influence widens recognition and stabilizes feedback, the system becomes adaptive. When influence rigidifies and suppresses variation, the system becomes brittle. We do not become more human by eliminating difference. We become more human by increasing the range of difference we can hold together. And because we are temporal integrators, expanding that range aligns with the trajectory of life itself. Life endures by increasing what it can integrate. Systems that refuse expansion eventually fracture. Systems that expand integration become resilient. Ethics is structural alignment with the direction of becoming. When integration begins to fail, we often see it first in mental health. Not because mental health is separate from identity, but because it reveals how well a system is holding together across time. These experiences are not personal failures, they are signals. Signals that temporal integration is under strain. Trauma is what happens when a past cannot be metabolized. A moment remains raw. It refuses to weave into the larger pattern. Instead of supporting continuity, it intrudes into the present. The braid tightens around a knot. Depression is what happens when the future strand thins. The thread connecting you to tomorrow fades. Possibility narrows and nothing ahead feels reachable. Integration collapses not from lack of will, but because the horizon has receded. Anxiety is what happens when the present is overloaded. Too many possible futures, too many unresolved trajectories, feedback cannot stabilize. The present stops feeling like ground and becomes constant negotiation. Identity confusion emerges when past, present, and future lose alignment. These are not defects of character. They are signs that integration has been strained by misrecognition, by narrow possibility, by rigid expectations, by environments that demand more coordination than the system can sustain alone. And here's a critical point. Mental health is never only individual, because integration is never only individual. Relational systems distribute support or withhold it. They widen horizons or constrict them. They stabilize feedback or amplify distortion. When systems become brittle, individual strands feel the strain first. Mental health struggles are often early warning signals that the integrative fabric is under pressure. To respond ethically is not only to treat symptoms, it is to restore conditions of integration, to widen horizons, to stabilize feedback, to allow difference to be metabolized rather than suppressed. Resilience is not the absence of fracture, it is the capacity to reweave. Identity is fragile, but it's also remarkably resilient. The resilience of our lives depends on how much difference we can hold together without tearing. It does not depend only on who we think we are. It depends on how we treat one another across time, how we honor each other's pasts, how we stabilize the present, and how we widen or narrow the futures people are allowed to imagine. To harm someone ethically is to interrupt their temporal integration, to fracture their past, collapse their horizon, or rigidify their becoming. To support someone ethically is to expand integration, to widen recognition, to stabilize feedback, and to create space for revision and growth. But this is not only about individuals. A society that expands what it can integrate becomes more resilient. A society that narrows what it can recognize becomes brittle. When we suppress difference, we reduce adaptive capacity. When we widen what can be metabolized without collapse, we increase collective resilience. We do not become more human by eliminating variation. We become more human by increasing the range of difference we can hold together across time. Identity is never just something we carry. It's something we build together, moment by moment, trajectory by trajectory, across the time we share. And the question is not whether we have power. The question is whether we use it to expand becoming or to constrain it. In the next video, we'll turn to meaning. What happens when the braid holds together but loses orientation? Until then, take care of your time and of each other's, and I'll see you in the next one.